So my name is Vin Vashishta. I am the founder and CDO of V Squared, and I take my coffee black, double nitro, a little bit of sugar.
Welcome everyone to another edition of the MLOps.community podcast. I am your host, Dimitri Os, and today we're talking to none other than my man, Vin Vashishta. He is an internet influencer extraordinaire when it comes to data. He's been talking about the value of data and data strategy since before I even knew what machine learning was. Let's be honest, he's been in the game for ages and he has hit a nerve with the greater community because of the value that he brings and how he cuts through the hype, and he also reminds people to go back to square one, which is, and I think you will find this as a theme throughout this conversation, the TLDR. If you get one thing from this, it is that you cannot have a valuable machine learning or data product without first figuring out what the strategy is around that. And so we go into the depths of what he means by strategy. And I challenged him a little bit on strategy because I think it gets a bit of a bad rap. You know, anytime I hear people talking about strategy, I think about PowerPoints, and basically it's code word for people saying that they do not want to actually do anything. They just want to talk about doing it and then let somebody else do it. So he pushes back, as rightly so. And he tells me what good strategy and good execution is. And I hope you enjoy this edition of the MLOps.community podcast. For all those people that are listening on Spotify, we are dangerously close to getting over 100 reviews, which for me is a small little milestone that I would love to hit. So if you are listening, hit us with a review, give us some feedback, and we will see you all on the other side. Take care. Let's get into it with Vin. All right, so for those who do not know, Vin, you were one of the first people to come on here, one of the first people that I would consider a big name to come onto this podcast and grace us with your presence. And since then, I probably quote you at least once a month, and there are some things that you have said that have made their way onto the MLOps community merch. One being that Kubernetes is a gateway drug, and I mentioned it last LLMs in production conference. I think that we may have to update that to ChatGPT is now the gateway drug for everyone, but it's great to have you back here. I'm so excited for this conversation, and I think we can start, dude. I just want to know, what have you been thinking about recently?
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, I think ChatGPT, it's really interesting that generative AI, it's not really a gateway drug. It's more, heroin. It's you first hit, it's addictive. And then you realize it's kind of taking over your life. And some people right now are sort of going through that rehab stage where they're thinking, okay, whoa, maybe I took this a little too far. But one of the big things I've been thinking about is like big picture. When I was heads down building, it was a completely different view. And I got sort of 2015, 2016, I got a little taste of what it took to get a big initiative. One of those that was expensive, but delivered ridiculous ROI. What did it take to get that through? And that's been percolating. I mean, the last time we talked was before the book, before fully pivoting into teaching and explaining strategy, product management. So my head's really been, what are the implications here and what's coming next? Because that's where, if you're talking about strategy isn't about where we are today, where we were yesterday. It's forward-looking, it's prescriptive. So I'm trying to think more about where do we go next and how do we position data teams? How do we position careers? What's a data engineer going to be in 2 to 3 years? What's a data scientist going to be in 2 to 3 years? But also, what are customer preferences going to look like across domains in 2 to 3 years? What are businesses? When we talk about generative AI, it's a big productivity boom and improvement. what's that going to do to our businesses? What does that mean? So it's different, really different headspace.
Yes, because I remember when we talked last time, one thing that constantly stays in my mind is something that I think you just basically went all in on. And it's, you have to understand the business value of any project that you undertake. You made it so that I understand that. And so when you talk about where we're going and kind of peeking around the corner, especially when it comes to data engineers and data scientists, I would love to hear what your thoughts are and what hypotheses you have on how those roles will change.
Your libraries, generative AI, all of this stuff, it makes things faster. So I can do the same thing that I did 2 years ago today with a generative AI assisted tool. I can do it faster. It's not easier. And that's really the distinction that we have to make. It didn't get any easier. The tough parts of data science are still tough. Data science still needs data. Generative AI didn't change any of that. So we still need to build models. Generative models will not do everything. Yes, you can make generative AI do some of these things, but not the GPT. It doesn't work out of the box. And so a lot of what data scientists are doing hasn't changed. We're still working in multiple directions. It feels like, generative AI is everything. It's not. There are already different research avenues that are proposing replacements and improvements for transformers because they're ridiculously expensive to build and they don't really work with the data efficiently or effectively. They don't get great signal. We just throw tons of data at them. That's not sustainable. We need to start really fleshing out and exploring causal machine learning and creating that connection between causal inference and machine learning and our models and our ways of generative plays into that. We can do causal discovery with generative models, and we can begin to use them to build hypotheses about causal relationships from these massive data sets. So we've got a lot of work to do. There's robotics, there's autonomous, there's pretty soon IoT is going to give us data, the likes of which we've never had access to. We have to figure out, again, optimization. That's a lot of data. We have to figure out how to train models on device or run smaller versions of models on these lower resource devices. We've got so much work to do. Data science hasn't changed. We're still doing things. So if you get rid of your data science team, you're really hobbling yourself. But at the same time, I think generative AI has brought some realism. You don't need these, high-end advanced researchers with 8 PhDs and 15 conference presentations. And most businesses don't need that person. That's the realism I think generative AI has brought to the table, is the paradigm will be these big foundational models and breakthroughs. Those will be provided by third parties, by truly AI-first companies.
Goes back to that ROI question from the beginning, and I think the narrative that you harp on is very much like Google can afford that because 0.00001% increase is still millions of dollars for them. And so they're able to see the ROI very clearly. But for the rest of the companies out there, maybe it's not as clear and they're not at a scale where that 0.0001 increase in accuracy or whatever the metric is going to make such a difference. So that I 100% see where you're coming from on that. And I think you also shared a great meme. And by the way, this is like a side note for anybody that does not follow you on LinkedIn or Twitter, go follow Vin because it's just quality all day long. And
thank you.
The meme was where it's the guy that's jumping over all the steps, right? He's got one foot at the bottom and then one foot at the top of the stairs. And each stair is like data collection, data cleaning, data access, or like data engineering type things. And then at the top of the stairs where the guy's trying to get to, it just says generative AI. And so you're skipping over all of that and boom, you go to the generative AI use case and it comes back to this idea of it didn't change much. It just made things faster. So what exactly does that mean that it's faster now because we can just hit an API?
It's a different paradigm. And this is something that I try to teach in all of my classes. I spent a whole chapter on my book talking about this because it's important to understand it really in a lot of the ways that you touched on. First, when you talk about that 1% or 0.1% and being able to monetize that, your initiatives, returns must scale faster than costs. And as you begin to create more advanced models, your costs begin to scale faster than returns for almost every use case. So we have to be very intentional and think about, is this a place where returns for the business will scale faster than costs? If you look at the reason why a company like Google or Amazon or Meta or really Walmart or a company like Airbus or Maersk, who does the shipping, companies like FedEx, UPS, the reason why they can operationalize and make tons of money on very high reliability models is because they have scale. They have problems at scale. So for them, the expense of building out these more complex, more reliable models it makes the unit economics works, makes sense. We have to think about our roles that way. But we can't ask data professionals to become strategists and product managers. They've got other work. So we need to talk about bringing on new roles. We need value-centric data professionals. They need to understand the business. We need to have a level of business acumen. Leaders need an even higher level of business acumen and awareness of really how to get other parts of the business involved and engaged, how to lead strategy and lead strategically. These are skills that we need to develop in our data professionals. We don't need management. We need leadership. We say we don't need strategy. No, we don't need another PowerPoint presentation. That's what we don't need. We do need strategy. We need business acumen. So there's this, there's this separation that we need to make where some roles are technical facing, but still have that business acumen so that they can do the job and bring these concepts of the business's value and business returns and customer needs to all of the decisions that we make every day that influence the downstream product that we deliver. But we have to support all these other roles because, it's the reason why C-level leaders want to step over all of that stuff is because they don't understand any of it. They have no idea what any of that means or how data connects to the business and business value. And as we now have more and more CDOs coming into the business, we need to support them so that they understand how to get a seat at the C-level strategy planning table, because that's where these perceptions get influenced. So there's kind of two sides to this. I want data professionals to have better business acumen, better business skills, because that results in better products. I want these new roles, data product managers, AI product managers, data and AI strategists, to come into the fold because that frees up the data team and it also helps keep the connection between strategy and execution, keep it really close together. The reason why I wrote From Data to Profit is because you need a single playbook. And if the business isn't operating from a single playbook, or if they're asking the data team to sort of overextend itself and do things that it's just not structured, not staffed, not empowered to do, there's going to be kind of a no-win situation. We'll keep having C-level leaders want to step straight over 5 steps to get to generative AI because that's what they're being told they need.
Whenever I hear the word strategy, it always makes a little red light go off in my head or the red flag go around. And it's basically like I equate it to someone that doesn't want to actually do the thing. They just want to tell the person to do the thing. So what does this look like in practice?
Well, that's one of the challenges we have is the perception of strategy sometimes meets reality. There are a ton of strategists who are hand wavers and PowerPoint jockeys. Those are really, they've given strategy a bad name, and it's well earned as a bad name, where they show up, ask a ton of questions, and then drop off a book. And they say, yeah, go do this. And you look at the book and you're like, man, come on, man. We knew that. Come on. What are you doing? Or look at my book. One of the examples that I bring up is CNN Plus, where the company brought in a big five strategy consulting company to rubber stamp a really bad decision. And that's why strategists have a bad reputation, because
But then nobody gets fired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they earned it. This is kind of the reality that if you are looking at it from a technical strategy standpoint, we're cleaning up a lot of this. And I call that strategic debt. And businesses have a ton of strategic debt because we've been making these decisions about strategy that are forward-looking, that are prescriptive. We've been making them through best guess and whoever yells the loudest, whoever says, yeah, I've got 8 degrees from these business schools. I've been doing this for 38 years. Need to listen to me. That's what's and if you're a data professional, you're looking at that like, right. That's why it comes off that way. It is fluffy, but there's another reason for it too. Scientists and engineers struggle with strategy because it takes these away from us. Strategy has nothing to do with your hands. And we are so hands focused. We are so tactical. We are so execution, do, that even when we plan, we are planning to do something immediately. And so strategy is a challenge for us. We want to quickly move away from strategy because it's uncomfortable and get to let's do something because that's where we live. That's where our comfort zone is. But strategy is different. Strategy needs frameworks because when it comes to strategy, we're not explaining what to do. I'm not telling you, do this, do that. That doesn't work. Why? Because conditions are different at every business. Conditions are different from year to year. Conditions aren't static. So the advice that works for one company won't work at another one. We have to provide something that's more flexible. Strategy isn't a plan. Strategy is that framework that allows you to come up with multiple plans that lead you to success, to that goal that you've decided you want to pursue. Strategy is even a framework to decide what goal you should pursue. So it's a different mindset. The reason why we need strategy is because without it, there's no connection back to value. And even if your business is a not-for-profit, I mean, if value means something totally intangible, where it is societal good, you can see that no matter what value is defined as by the business, data science has a role. We can help the business understand its options. In some cases, we're helping the business understand itself for the first time, understand its customers in a new way for the first time, understand the marketplace. These are all complex business systems. So strategy can be supported by data science because we can create models that explain these complex business systems and make it easier for that strategy planning process to be forward-looking and prescriptive about what should happen, but also measure those feedback loops. And when things are not working, when the plan doesn't seem to be going in the right direction because we're not seeing the outcomes we expected, we can help reveal options. Well, what types of changes will be most effective? So you can see data science is almost strategic by nature. We have a deep connection to real strategy, not fluffy strategy. And when you begin to introduce data, analytics, and advanced models into the strategy planning process, it stops being fuzzy. It's not this abstract, thing where, you drop it off the book and you're running. You're dropping off data, models, really concrete support for this particular opportunity. And that's never been possible before. In my book, I talk about CNN Plus, and that's what strategy used to look like. That's what it's always been. So strategy now, and I say strategists in many circles are terrified of data scientists Because as soon as you realize what you can do, you can replace many strategists, but you have to change the way that you operate. And that's why so many data scientists have a hard time making the jump, even though what we do is so interlinked with strategy as a function of a business.
So what are some things that you go from, let's maybe just walk through as someone who's a data scientist or even a data engineer, what are the questions you're asking yourself as you level up?
How can I become a multiplier? That's the biggest question that engineers, data scientists, analysts, data engineers, doesn't matter. If you're technical, you need to be asking yourself, how can I become a multiplier? Because that's the mindset shift. We think about, here's how much value I can deliver. Here's how fast I can code that. Here's how complex of a project I can take on. Here's how many different frameworks I can learn. But think about it. When you scale that, and that's what it takes to get a promotion, get a raise, you have to deliver more value. So we're scaling. And we think that our technical skills are going to be the things that scale us. But there's a ceiling, because you can only work so many hours. So eventually, no matter how smart, no matter how technically capable you become, right around the 10 or 15 year mark, you hit the plateau, and it's a hard ceiling. So at year 5, you need to be thinking about, what should I learn to make myself a multiplier, where I am not the only source of improvement. So when you get better, the team gets better. When you get better, the projects you deliver begin to deliver higher returns. That's where you begin to see why some of the people that are at the staff level get to be where they are, because they are amazing teachers. They don't just take on complex work. They make the entire team more capable. They train and mentor and get people who are at the mid-level to perform at just a half a level shy of where they are. So they don't just make contributions individually. They make the entire team better. Great leaders create opportunities for their team. They create teams that are more effective, more productive, deliver more value as a unit than they would as just a group of individual contributors.
Folks, real fast, I want to mention that we are having an LLMs in production part 3. That's right, uno, dos, tres. This is the 3rd time around, and I'm pretty sure we're getting better each time. You know what you can expect. Top level talks from people that are actually doing this. No hype, none of this Twitter demo bullshit. It's all real deal productionizing LLMs. All right. So I'm going to tell you a few of the speaker names to try and get you excited and signing up for the event. You can click on the link in the description, or you can just go to llmsinproduction.com or go to home.MLOps.community and you will see the event there. Let's talk about some of these speakers because, wow, chef's kiss. All right. We've got Ben Harvey from AI Squared. You know who he is. He's doing all kinds of wild stuff with government, LLM, security, privacy. Oh, it's so good. We've got Timothy from Mistral. Might as well be Timothy Chalamet because Mistral is blowing up after that gigantic round they raised. We've got Azul from Nitschla, also blowing up because of Time GPT, a time series open source foundational model. Mind blown right there. We have everyone's favorite influencers, Shreya Shankar. She's going to be on a panel talking about how to debug LLMs. What do? You just prompt it a little more? Is it prompt tuning? Do I need to fix my RAG? Do I need to fix my vector database? Sparse vectors, dense vectors. I don't know. My mind is exploding. It's a common theme in this conference. We also have Lily Chan from Contenda, Bill Salek, CTO of Brainly. And if you're into agents, you know who we've got. We've got Silen, the R&D lead from AutoGPT, talking to us all about the best practices that he and the AutoGPT community has found since releasing that a few months ago. We also have Harrison Chase. He's going to be coming on, giving a talk. How could we not? And this is not even mentioning the hard hitters that we have from the gigantic corporations like NVIDIA and Google and Meta. We've got all these people. I'll leave you with One of my favorite talks that I am most excited for, that is from Dimitro, the creator of Onyx. He is currently leading and the CTO of Fireworks AI. Before that, he was lead maintainer of PyTorch. The guy's got a solid track record. Shout out to our main sponsors, Prosus. They are the reason that this is happening and that you all can benefit from it. And last but not least, before we go, let's just talk about what some of the different topics are going to be, what the talks are. We've got deploying open source models in production, what your different options are, regulatory aspects of LLMs, how to build economical LLM solutions, how to select, prioritize LLM use cases. We've got tons of product owners and product engineers coming to give talks, like Philip from Honeycomb. He was on the podcast a few pods ago. Go and check that talk out if you haven't. Enjoy this podcast. We'll see you all there. And you know what else is going to come in the breaks of these events? It's going to be some bad musical improvisations from yours truly.
That's where you begin to see the power of leadership. Leadership removes roadblocks. Leadership creates opportunities for growth. And so instead of the leader just being sort of that center point, the leader is making their team more valuable, more effective, more productive, and focusing them on higher value activities. So they're multiplying those hours that they work. They work 1 hour, and instead of getting that 1 hour's worth of value, they're getting a improvement out of every part of their team. Strategists, it's the same way. If you look at a product manager is often the difference between a product that gets delivered that doesn't get adopted by customers and that home run. They're a multiplier. So they make sure that all that money that gets spent on the initiative isn't wasted. And you think about that, that's a huge multiplier. That's where strategy is so powerful, so valuable. That's why strategists and product managers get paid ridiculous amounts of money. Because if you think about all the investments that the business makes, strategists make sure that those investments return more with them in that strategist's role than they would without them in that strategist's role. And as you move up sort of the strategist ladder or leadership ladder from manager to CDO or from individual contributor to product manager to a technical strategist or data and AI strategist role, you begin to have a greater and greater impact.
I like this idea of becoming a multiplier because there was so many ways that my mind started thinking about like how you can become a multiplier, right? And it felt like there's almost these sophomoric ways of looking at it. Like I'll just use more Copilot when my coding, and that'll make me a multiplier because I'll be able to work more and get more done faster, whatever. But then there's also ways of looking at it that are much more mature and wise, I would say. And like you were saying, bringing on the team, creating situations where the team can thrive. And then not only that, but there's these other ways of becoming a multiplier that I wasn't even thinking about, which is becoming a teacher so that the people around you are raised up. And whether that is you doing it by creating incredible docs that people can read, or it's just you pair programming with someone and making sure that they understand. And so then the next time they do that, they're doing it 10 times faster, whatever it may be.
Yeah, code reviews are another excellent, like code reviews, model reviews, unreal opportunities too. Same thing.
Exactly. And so I love this. I also really want to dive into what you're talking about here, where it seems like there's this new job that you're talking about, which is like the AI product manager and what that looks like.
So it's not necessarily new. It's becoming more ubiquitous. I think it was primarily big tech and companies like, IBM, SAP had them as well, some of the more traditional technical companies. But it's now gaining a lot of traction at more diverse businesses. MasterCard now has not only product managers, but also strategists. And they'll embed a data or an AI strategist in every organization. to help them figure out how they're going to monetize. And so there's these new roles that are beginning to permeate into businesses. The main, cause behind a data and AI product manager versus just take your digital product manager is digital is monetized differently than data and AI. It's built and used by customers differently. So all of these different types of really paradigms that are associated with data and AI, you have to understand that there's a difference. If you try to do, and this is what most companies have figured out, it's the reason why they're hiring data and AI product managers. If you try to fit data and AI products into a digital box, it doesn't work. We live in now this sort of multi-technology marketplace where you have digital, you have cloud, you have IoT, 5G, we've got web, we've got mobile, we have data analytics, advanced machine learning. Platforms are here and emerging. And I mean, think about it. 5 years from now, we're going to have quantum computing. That is going to be a wave that hits us in 5 to 10 years. So we have all of these different technology waves. They're all monetized differently, and they all have to coexist. A product that starts its life as a digital product may become a data product, or may integrate data features into it to make it more valuable, to find new ways to monetize customers or that data. It may then incorporate analytics. It may use more advanced, more reliable models to support functionality. So we think of products today as sort of the static. It's either this or that. And technology isn't like an iPhone. You don't just go from the iPhone 12 to 13. You're not going to go from digital to AI and toss digital out the door. No, it's not going to work that way. That's why we need data and AI product managers, because they understand this new paradigm. They realize that data and AI are monetized in different ways. If you think about a data set, if I gather data, it's high quality, I can use that for several reports. I can use it to train multiple models. It's still good. Like, I haven't depleted it. I haven't used it, and it could be repurposed for something completely different. But I don't have to change the underlying asset itself. It's still that original artifact, and there's been no change to it. If you look at something like a digital piece of software, the amount of work that you have to do to get a piece of software that was used for one use case to support another use case is typically pretty heavy. So it can't be monetized in the same way. Machine learning models, very much the same, and Microsoft's teaching a masterclass in this. They're treating Copilot and GPT like Frank's Red Hot sauce. They're putting it on everything. And it's literally just being monetized. It's the same thing. And it's being monetized over and over and over again. And that's the only way that they could justify putting $10 billion, I mean, seriously, $10 billion into OpenAI. That takes some spine right there. But it also takes vision. You have to see that it's not just an interesting, chatbot. You have to look at it and you say, I see ways that we can monetize Bing like we've never done before. We might be able to revive Bing with this thing, with generative AI. We could integrate generative features into Office 365 and charge more every month for it. We could integrate it into VS Code and support new features and functionality that we might be able to charge $20, $30, $40 a month for. That's the product paradigm. The reason why data and AI product managers are so critical, because just that one paradigm is one of dozens that you need to bring to the role to successfully monetize data, machine learning, even analytics, even reporting. You have to think about it completely differently. And if you don't, if you try to stuff it into a digital box, it doesn't end up delivering the kind of value that it could. That's why so many businesses fail when it comes to this, is they try the digital way, but they need someone who thinks in the data and AI paradigms and who can not only teach the data team how to deliver value, but also teach the business how to find it, how to integrate it, how it interacts with customers. It's another paradigm. Customers don't use this the same way. Users don't interact with it the same way as they do digital technology. So there's all of these levels of frameworks and paradigms that you need a new role to take on.
I mean, just one part of that made me think so much of how you were saying a clean data set, a solid data set is worth its weight in gold. And you just think about like, wow, that nice data pipeline that gets set up is so valuable. And then if you can figure out ways to utilize that for many different use cases, it just becomes like profit on top of profit.
Yep. And it's better than gold. I mean, you think about it like gold or oil or something like that. No, if I, mine a barrel of oil, I pull it out of the ground, I did all that work to get it into the barrel, I sell it, that's it, it's gone, it's used. But that data set over, and it's like that barrel fills itself back up. And the only limitation is the number of use cases you can find for that particular data set. That's the only ceiling on its value. And that changes the way you think about data engineering, doesn't it? Like now you're not just thinking let's gather everything. No, let's gather the data set that we can monetize the most. And so we need to stop saying it's the new oil. It's not. It's different. It's not gold. It's different. It's a novel asset class. Models are the same way. The more the model generalizes, the more use cases it can support. And so we need to think about it that way. So what should our data science teams be doing? Not that stupid, simple stuff. You want something that the business can monetize over and over and over and over again across internal and external use cases. And so you think about it differently because it is a different paradigm. And what's holding so many businesses back is they don't have anyone in the strategy role. Like you think about what's the purpose of a strategist aside from, PowerPoints. It's someone who can explain, hey, what should our data teams be doing? Here's the framework to figure that out because it's different. It's monetized differently. So what does that mean? That means we need to be looking at opportunity discovery totally differently. Yes, we're going to start with one main opportunity, but we're going to decide which is the most lucrative opportunity based on all the other stuff we can do. It's not just the primary driver. It's everything. And so you're hearing like strategy. Wait a minute. Oh, so that's what strategy does.
I think you're the perfect person to ask this question to because there have been so many people that are struggling with the idea of how to justify the ROI of large language models. Because it's really hard to get them working if you're trying to bring them in-house, right? There's not really the infrastructure set up yet for such gigantic models, although that's quickly changing. And so maybe by the time this podcast comes out, that will be a solved issue, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
But nope. B, it's even if you're just hitting an API, one big thing that I saw in the survey that we did, and then we created a report on it, was let's imagine that you're adding a new feature to your product and you are now making a call to ChatGPT and you aren't able to charge extra for that new feature. So you just took away some of your revenue. However, I've heard on the other side of things is like, well, yeah, but that new feature, it affects a metric that we know will get people using our product more. So in that case, they have looked at it and they say, okay, it is worth it because we're spending $100,000 a year on ChatGPT calls, but we know that if we sign up 2-3 new clients because of that new feature, it pays for itself. And so I imagine that's what you like to see, someone who has thought through it that way. What are some other ways that you justify this ROI, and specifically like looking at large language models and thinking, how do I know if this is actually worth it for me?
That's the big deal. And I think it's important, what you just said, that survey where people are saying, I don't know how to justify the cash. I can't, get the ROI. It's expensive. The most important words I think that have ever been said in the generative AI era is we have no moat. We need to internalize that, because think about it. If all I have to do is connect up to, a standalone instance on Azure of GPT, whatever. If all I have to do is that to deliver that feature and functionality and get those 2 new customers, as soon as I get those 2 new customers, every competitor is going to say, oh, thank you for proving the market for me. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing, because there's no moat. There's no barrier. So you have to think about this from a strategy and a product approach. This is why both are so critical. And I love the thought process. We're spending more money. We are not charging for it, but we can monetize it in a different way. We can monetize it by bringing 2 new customers on board. I love that thinking. Absolutely amazing. But we have to think even more strategically than that, which involves looking at who else can do the exact same thing. How long will it take them? And if we're spending a ton of money on those 2 customers, on acquiring the customers, on proving the market for it, what's going to stop our competitors from taking advantage of our investment of creating the market, of proving it, and just entering and saying, hey, guess what? We have an alternative. It's the same thing. First 2 doesn't mean anything. It's not, saying you're the first one there doesn't help very much, because if someone else can offer the exact same thing and be third, then you have no moat. You have no advantage. There's no way to protect that investment you made in getting those customers. So the first thing I always say is, if you're introducing the feature and no one's willing to pay for it, why are you doing it? There has to be something else. We look at the opportunities that are right in front of us, but the opportunities that are right in front of a business may not be the opportunities that are right for the business. There are so many different things that you can do with generative AI. If you understand the paradigm, you can do opportunity discovery, like I said, in a completely different way. You have tons of different opportunities that could deliver value to the business, but you have to look at the ones that have the highest potential for returns. Those should be the ones you're doing first, because if you can fine-tune a model, or if you can embed business expertise, domain expertise into your prompts, or you can use some combination of fine-tuning and prompt engineering, you can create something that your competitor can't just swoop in and do themselves. They will not be able to successfully follow you. And that's your moat in the next probably 18 months. It's the data, the domain expertise, and it is really that strategic component of it as well. So you have the talent, the data engineering, the data quality, the data scientists. Yeah, there's some prompt engineering and, a few buzzwords on the other side of that. But there's also that construct of domain expertise. There's also that construct of the business understanding the product paradigm and the strategic paradigm, because that will be a barrier for the majority of businesses until they start bringing these new capabilities in-house. It's almost like trying to do data science without data scientists. It's the same thing. You can't have an AI product without someone that understands AI products. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You can't build out an AI strategy, unless you have somebody that understands it. So there's these barriers to entry that most companies are 6 months, 12 months, 18 months away from even being able to deliver a copycat. And that's how we should be thinking. First, it's that prioritization, making sure that we're really going after the big winners first, not the obvious winners, because the obvious winners are going to be obvious to everyone else. That doesn't lean on your competitive advantage. So bring that knowledge that you have as a business to bear. Your AI product sense, your AI strategy sense, quality data, internal domain expertise. You can see this is enterprise-wide. That's the change here. You could do digital as a siloed project. You can't do that with data and AI. It's bigger. So that's the advantage of having some of these components in place. Even if your data is not perfect, you know at least exactly how to target initiatives at the data you need in order to be successful with those opportunities you see, it's an advantage. And companies need to start going in that direction.
And so you mentioned before how different data product officers or data product managers are being embedded into teams. Is that how you've seen it be most successful? And if I am in the enterprise and I'm a data scientist or a machine learning engineer or data engineer, and I'm looking around, what are some things, can you give us some examples of how you would go about adding that extra value?
So first evangelize that you need new roles. Half the battle is just talking about it inside of the business. If no one understands that there are jobs to be done that are not being done, then you're going to come up against this brick wall where you say, hey, we need these new roles. Okay, nice. Next, anybody else? Is there anyone else has something that they would like to talk about? So the first message really is for data professionals, hey, we need new roles. And you can say some fairly obvious stuff. Right now, technology is leading strategy. And that's going to end in technology. But when you have strategy leading technology, you end up with value. So let's fix that. And now you're talking about the new role, the strategist, and talking about a technical or AI strategist. We have plans for data and AI products. Shouldn't we have someone who's a product manager that understands data and AI products? It's these obvious just one-liners and two-liners that you can deliver that'll change the way everyone around you thinks. It'll change the way that other leaders outside of the business think about this. From an organizational development standpoint, I've got like 2 chapters in my book that are really long about organizational development. So it's kind of a complicated question to answer quickly, but the best way to think about it is you have product managers. If you have a product management organization, that's awesome. As long as they're open and collaborating across the business, you're in good shape. You can put your people there. You could put data product managers in the data organization, but again, only if there's that open collaborative relationship. If not, the data product manager is going to have to create that. And from within the data organization, maybe some challenges that may be harder. Your strategist should sit at whatever strategy organization, product organization that you have. Some companies don't, though. So again, they can live in the data organization. You need a CDO or a C-level data leader, or executive at least level data leader, who has a seat at the table at the C-suite and can help with strategy planning. They can become that technical pillar of strategy where they're not planning strategy. That's the strategist's role. They're going to lead it. They're going to be the ones who take it and implement it. And so they need a seat there. They're also part of the education process. You can hear all of these roles will continue, those one-liners that I gave you at the very beginning. They're going to continue that process of education where we are bringing data and AI literacy to the rest of the business. But there's 2 sides to this. They're also bringing business literacy into the data organization. So every time they're teaching the C-suite about data and AI paradigms and how it impacts strategy and how it can create opportunities and how it can align with core goals, they're also bringing some of that strategic acumen into the data organization. And it's a multi-way sort of exchange of knowledge where the business becomes data and AI literate, but the data team becomes business literate. And that's so important for that 2-way communication to happen. So it's not just you doing one-liners for the rest of time. If you want to be a data product manager, yeah, I'll teach you. I love it. Great, thanks. You want to be a strategist? Yeah, come on in. I'll help you. I'll teach you. I'll give you classes, read my book, whatever. But if you don't, this is also really valuable because it lets you get back to doing what you love doing. If all you want to do is data engineering, advocating for that role, bring someone from the outside in so you don't have to do this anymore. And that's one of the big things that I tell, data professionals is if you don't want to do this, advocate for the roles so that you don't have to. You're often bent into these roles that you shouldn't be bent into. And it's so much more effective if you can get someone who's not only got the capability set, but also the desire to be doing this, to take on those roles and responsibilities. And now you're freeing up the data team to do what it does best.
Damn. All right, Vin. I love this, man. We've chatted for long enough. For anybody out there that has not read Vin's book, we will put a link to that in the description. Maybe we can give away a few for the first commenters in our YouTube channel.
I might have a couple copies I can send. Yes.
There we go, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
I might be able to bring a couple out.
Or send me a Slack message or an email and we can give some discount codes too, I imagine. Vin is kind like that. I'm giving away his whole
handed out stuff.
If you want to talk strategy, this is the way to not do strategy. Give it all away. And actually, no, that's a great strategy. Give it all away. It'll come back in tenfold. But that's a whole nother podcast, man. This has been super enlightening. I really appreciate talking to you. Every time I talk to you, I have a blast. And as I said before, you created one of my favorite shirts that we got in the merch shop. It is Kubernetes is a gateway drug. And we still have that. It's one of our best sellers. Besides, now I also, I don't know if you saw the other one. I think you did. It says,
you told me about it.
I hallucinate. Yeah, I hallucinate more than ChatGPT. That was the other one that we created. That
I got some one-liners.
There we go, man. I need more of those so I can make more shirts. But anyway, that's, again, for our next conversation, we can just have it all be one-liners. And, dude, all right, I'm going to try and steal some of your time now so you can give me some strategy on community building and all that fun stuff too.
Ops. You have to immerse yourself in the MLOps content. The best way to do it is to subscribe to the MLOps.community podcast. So, good luck and keep learning.